Hey everyone, I'm Santiago and today I'd like to show you how Cursor AI can completely change the way you code. This is making things faster, easier and way more efficient. So let's take a look. Let's kick things off with the debugging features. Here we have UI that I have been working on lately. As you can see, there is an error that I need to address. I can check the error. I can copy this. I'm going to our IDE and I have a prompt. I'm going to ask to the model that I'm describing the error and also I'm adding an extra instruction that I need to address to. So let's take a look what it comes up. It is creating code and we have the option to apply this. Let's do that. You can see here are the changes and let's accept. And now we can check our user interface. I'm going to refresh and the error is not there anymore. So that's very useful and we can take advantage of that. All right, let's continue with code generation from natural language. This is one of my favorite features. It is turning plain English into working code. It is like telling a colleague what you need and they just write it for you. Let me show how it works, but we need to start from here. We are watching at the screen two files that we are going to use as context because we want to replicate the patterns that we can find here. We are using date picker. This comes from Material UI. We have the type for the atomic component. We have the props that we are going to use. Some of them were created, some of them we are extending from the original component from the library. Here we have our atomic component, and this is the type for our controlled date picker input. It is using a base controller and it is in charge of working with the forms and sending or receiving information from the database. Now let's see how it works. We are watching Cosmos. Cosmos is something similar to Storybook. We can store components that developers will use in their projects. So this is our date picker input and it is working as we would expect. Now let's go to the Composer tab. Here I have prepared a prompt. Let me explain a bit more. I'm telling the model that I want him to follow the patterns that he can find in the context that we are going to provide. I want a new component that is going to be called datetime picker input. I want to extend all existing features and props that are in the original Material UI component. And I want him to create the fixture on the component in the same folder. The next step is to add those context files. And in addition to that, I'm going to include the URL that we are going to use as an additional context. You can see this model is able to browse the web. In this case, we are providing an URL that he's going to use. Let's see how it works. Now it's creating code. Let's jump into this tab. We can see here the files that are going to be created. Here we got two failures, but we can reapply them. This is the first one and the second one. We got our files. Let's check them. Those are basically new files. As you can see, the green part of the code, basically the entire file, is new in this project. I'm going to accept this and this. Let's check datetime picker input. It is using datetime picker from the library. It is creating a type. You can see that it has many features that are customized for this component in particular. We have the atomic component, and finally we got the controlled datetime picker input. And the fixture is the file that is going to use Cosmos to display or to render our component. If we update this, we can see there is datetime picker input and we got our component working and ready to be sent as a pull request. Now that we got our new component, we have to create a test suite for that. Writing test is a task that I think nobody loves a lot, but Cursor handles it for you. You can automatically generate that code based on your functions. It's really a time saver feature. So let's use a prompt that I have here. I'm going to read that. Following the same mock structure in date picker input, this is the test model that I want to follow. Create a test suite for date time picker input. This is our new component. Assure to get coverage above 90%. Let's hit enter. And it is generating the code right now. We have to wait for the new file here at the left. The changes are applied. We got the file. I can check the paths where this test is located is correct. So it is context aware. I'm going to accept this. Let's assume it is well written. Let's run that. npm run test date picker, datetime picker. We got one failure and we got a coverage almost for 100%. Let's see what test is failing. Here we are, and let's see why is it failing. So it's expecting a string like that, but it is receiving this. So in this case, the fix is really straightforward. So I'm going to copy this. I'm going to update the assertion. I'm going to paste it here. And finally, I need to run the test suite again. All right, that's it. Now, here's something really handy. Multi-line editing and refactoring. Cursor makes it super easy to update multiple lines of code at once. And let's see how simple is this. For example, here I have a variable name. I'm going to call it chapters. I can hit tab and it will autocomplete, but now I can see there are some errors here. Video chapter doesn't exist anymore, so I'm going to get rid of it here, only in that part, in that line, and I'm going to start writing. So suggest me the change. I hit tab, and now I got another suggestion here. I'm hitting tab again, and it is updating everything that we need in our file. And that's it. Finally, let's take a quick look to a couple more features. Let's start with the terminal. In the terminal, we also have the large language model. For example, I'm going to ask to the model to print all the JSON files that are in the root level of this project. I don't want to include .next and Node modules folder because they are not necessary in this case. So I hit enter, I got an answer, I can run that, and that's it. And finally, the last thing I want to show you is we have a cursor rules file. There you are. That cursor rules is a file that you can use to customize your request to the model. Basically, it's a big prompt. Here you are explaining what you want, what you expect, what patterns should it follow, everything you want to the model to be aware. You can find many examples in this website. It is called cursor.directory, and it has a lot of templates that you can use, but the best thing you can do is to create and customize your own cursor rules file. And that's a wrap. Thank you for watching me.